Well, Razorback fans, Arkansas is still yet to have any sort of portal pop. At what point in time do you start kind of getting nervous? I'll tell you here on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Thursday, and I also want to put out my well wishes for everybody that may be impacted by the horrible weather that happened this past, I guess, last night until yesterday afternoon, as well as the weather that's going to be coming through here today in the state of Arkansas. I've seen some scary images and some tornadoes and everything, so hopefully everyone's being safe out there and doing all the precautions and doing everything they can. So it's just devastating to see that. But I wanted to really do a podcast today about a player that committed or a player that is staying at Arkansas. I've been really waiting for that all week. I've been kind of excited about, oh man, whoever it ends up being, I'm going to be able to break down the roster and break down how this happened. And I get to think about the over-the-top dramatic fashion of saying how good this player is and all of that stuff. I'll be able to do that. That was my thought process, at least. But it hasn't happened yet, at least at the time of the recording of this podcast, which is actually at 12:06 in the morning here on this Thursday. It hasn't happened yet. And there's been some other schools that have been able to get Razorback or potential Razorback players onto their roster. Guys that people were looking at like Cal and then like Keyshawn Hall, for instance. Keyshawn Hall was one of those big-time players out of UCF. He was the number one small forward in the portal, according to On3. And he commits to Auburn. Well, that stinks. You also had a guy like Malik Renault, who was gaining some interest from Arkansas, the transfer out of Indiana. Well, he's committed to Miami. And so on and so forth. That's what's happened. You haven't had any players announce that they're coming back. You haven't had any more players announcing that they're leaving. And you haven't had any more players get into the portal and commit to Arkansas and all of that. So because of that fact, some of you, not all, but some of you are starting to get nervous, starting to get a little antsy, starting to wonder, hey, what's going on? Because Arkansas, as you know, has all the amenities, all the resources. They have John Calipari. They have the NIL, which we'll talk about in a bit. They have all the things that they need to have. So why, oh why, would any player that they are interested in or that they want go somewhere else, at least at the high clip that they're losing them at? There's no reason for it. There's no excuse for it. We were told that everything's going to be fine, and it doesn't look fine right now. What do we do about this? That's how some people, not everybody, but that's how some people feel. Now, I've said all week long that you got to be patient. And I say that to you as well as to myself, because sometimes I get impatient. Sometimes I want instant results. Sometimes I want things to go exactly how I want them to go. And then we can just kind of breathe a little bit and start building upon what this is going to be and how good it can be. Maybe some things you got to work on, whatever that is. We don't want the labor pains. We just want the baby. So the question becomes of when. When do you start getting nervous? Some of you may be already, but I think you need to keep it in perspective. And you need to keep it into check. And understanding that as crazy as this is, Calipari is still going to have a team. It's not going to be something to where he doesn't field an entire roster. He is going to have a team. I would even bet on having a really good team, a talented team, a really good roster, because that's what he does. That's just what he's good at. And I don't see that changing anytime this year. But say if it was doomsday, say if it was worst case scenario, say that there were all these problems going on and Cal had lost it or maybe started getting outbid by some guys. Maybe the old chicken man, John Tyson's like, actually, I gotta scale back a little bit on the NIL this year because there's some problems with the chicken plants. Like, if all those things were in the worst case scenario, you would be able to tell very quickly just how bad it would be, but also how consistently bad it would be when it comes to getting players from the portal. I mentioned a couple of the guys that Arkansas was looking at that decided not to go and commit to them. That's fine. You're not going to get everybody. I'm okay with it. And I still believe, until proven otherwise, that they're going to have a great roster. But if today, tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, if the next week, essentially, goes on to where you keep having players that you're legitimately interested in, that you're reportedly after, that you want to be on your roster next year, and each and every one of those players are saying no to you and going elsewhere, that's when the problems start arising. That's when you start saying, okay, what's going on here? Because that's the high expectation that John Calipari has presented for himself. It's not a, well, golly gee, let's just hope we can get a couple of them. It's a mentality of, you're going to go get who you want to get because you're John Calipari, because that's what you do. You don't compete with anybody. You go get who you want to get them on the roster, and you get it going. Plain and simple. That's the mentality. That's the expectation. And so if you continue to see those players that Arkansas has been interested in and that they've wanted, and they're just giving the old bird to Cal and all that, and we're talking about days, we're talking about multiple players and everything, then you got to start wondering, okay, what's going on? What is it about? Are they getting outbid? Is there something about Cal? Is there something about the program? Is it, are people's maybe not feeling as great about Cal and the shine that he had because of this past season and the regular season and what happened with the players? Have people been bad-mouthing Cal behind the scenes? Are there bigger issues at hand? The questions are going to start coming in really hot and heavy, and there's not really going to be any justifiable answer to be given. All you'll have is your wonders and your confusion and the things that just make you scratch your head and nothing's adding up, which makes everything exponentially worse. Because not only will you have the problems with that, you'll also not be given any clear answers, to which you will go through your own mind and your own theories and your own possibilities as to what possibly could be going on. And when you do that, you get other people on board, and it just spreads like wildfire. Believe me, I know. I've told you many times, I'm one of these people that if we don't get information, then we just have to put everything together and connect dots, theorize, and understand that it's not fact, it's theory. It's just an idea, it's just an opinion. So understanding that, but it comes down to Cal, who has really not given me any reason to not believe in him. Not to say he's been perfect. Not to say that he's going to be perfect. But as weird as this past season was, he proved to me that he can still do it, that he can still coach, they can still get these guys going, still get them motivated, and still be able to put the best players out on the court in those situations and get the job done. He proved that to me this year. He proved that to you this year. So giving the benefit of the doubt is not an absurd thing. But it is something to where if you are one of the big boys, if you're one of the biggest and baddest programs around that have all the resources, that have the NIL that you say, that have the coach that you do, who's the Hall of Fame guy, all those things, if you truly have that, then the rest of the things should never be a problem. Portal should never be a problem. Recruiting should never be a problem. And that's where the nervousness comes in. It's kind of like if you go to a restaurant and they're known for fast food and your food's not fast. If you went to some other restaurant, a sit-down, nice restaurant, you have a little bit different of an expectation of when your food's going to arrive. But if you go to a fast food place, you expect your food to get out fast. And if it doesn't, you get a little antsy, you get a little nervous, you get a little frustrated. It's the same thing here. We're going to John Calipari, the man, the myth, the legend, the iconic Hall of Fame coach who's had some of the greatest players, the most NBA draft picks, all of that. We're going to him and we're expecting, all right, get it done. You're John Calipari, get who you want. And the longer that time goes on and no one's getting who they want, you're going to start getting concerned. Even if the food comes out just right still, and it ends up being okay, ends up being great even, the process of it is what's going to make you nervous. So the point is this. You can be a little bit timid and a little bit, I guess the best word would be a little bit intrigued by the process of why it's taking so long. But it doesn't mean you need to freak out. It doesn't mean anything's wrong. And it doesn't mean at all, in any way, shape, or form, that this is going to be a disaster. Let it play out. Be interested in it, but also be realistic in it. And see what the final result ends up being on this roster. It's going to be tough. It's tough for me. I would love to have started a podcast talking about a new player coming or a new player staying or whatever, but maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow that'll happen. We're actually going to talk about a national title roster and what that looks like, because I think there's some misconceptions that people have for that. So we'll get to that and a lot more. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, daylight savings time will sneak up on you, and you're always feeling that lost hour of sleep, or in my case, feeling the lost hours of time zones and everything. Well, that's what 5-Hour Energy is always going to do and have your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need to work through that little boost of energy to get you to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching all these great games, baseball games, delay games, you got the NCAA tournament Final Four is going to be happening too. Squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just keeping up with your busy day. 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. I've been staying up late every night, just waiting, wishing, hoping that something pops so I can make sure I'm on top of it. Well, luckily for me, that's why I have 5-Hour Energy, because it keeps me up, keeps me going the very next day. And with longer days, you got to love getting outside and enjoying yourselves. And Tropical Burst is one of the flavors that they have. Pretty good. For the summertime, oh yeah, it hits differently there. So whether I'm at a game, whether I'm traveling, whatever it is I'm doing, 5-Hour Energy is easy to grab and makes me feel extremely refreshed. So head over to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including the watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack and have it delivered straight to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, the championship roster of college basketball. I don't know why it got to the point that everyone feels it has to be this way to have a championship roster. It's almost like you're playing NBA Live from 2000, which was one of my favorite games. And you see the position groups. It says it's center, power forward, small forward, shooting guard, point guard. And you're like, okay, we got to get a center. Check. Got to get a power forward. Check. And you go through that and you're like, well, they have to be a certain size. Certain size for that position. So the center has to be 6'9" or above. Check. Power forward needs to be 6'7" to 6'9". Check. The small forward needs to be 6'5" to 6'7". Check. They just keep going through this whole thing is what they have their ideas of what this roster needs to look like as far as positions, as far as size, as far as height, as far as athleticism, all of those things. And it's crazy because it's not that simple. And as the old adage goes, there are so many different ways to skin a cat. You can win a title in different ways. And that's really been how it's been in the history of college basketball. Don't believe me? Just look at when Arkansas won the national championship in 1994. There weren't many groups and many type of teams that were playing the style, the 40 minutes of hell that Arkansas was playing, but they won a title with it. There were also teams like the Duke Blue Devils who won quite a few titles in the 90s, playing a different style. North Carolina, same thing, won a title, played a different style. Kentucky, maybe a little bit similarities, but still different styles there. Arizona, the list goes on and on. Point is that even during certain eras where one style or one philosophy seems to be all the rage, you can still have different ways to win those titles. It's just a matter of matchups and everything. But more importantly, it's just about the talent. The talent that you have to fit into what you do. Because I don't care what anybody says. Nolan Richardson, Hall of Fame coach, legend. He was able to go out there and win at a high level and a high clip. But he wasn't doing it with a bunch of 3 stars and just average Joes. Like, Nolan still had some really next level recruits. Like, Corliss Williamson was one of the best players in the country. Todd Day, Lee Mayberry, Big O, big time players that were highly sought after. Scotty Thurman, same way. Think about Derek Hood. He's a McDonald's All-American player. Like, there was just so many players that you remember that were kind of the like cool up and coming, like the Al Dillard types that maybe didn't get a lot of the looks, but they came in, and that's great. That's a great compliment, but you still have to have talent. And no matter the system that you run, you can have something that maybe be more effective, but at the end of the day, you got to have the talent to go along with it. It's just that simple. And so for a roster, for instance, Arkansas, and for John Calipari, it's like, what does that look like? What does a title roster look like for John Calipari and the Arkansas Razorbacks? They need to have these big men, and then they have to have this type of player and all that. To me, not necessarily. What they need, first and foremost, is talent, of course. But then next to that, they also need a team of experienced guys that play really well together. Sounds cliche. It sounds simple, but it truly is that simple. I mean, how many times have we seen some of the most talented teams in college basketball not win a title? What was missing? Was it just dumb luck? Maybe on occasion. But you just need the right team to have the right matchup and have the right chemistry and have the right ability, and it all fit together. So I don't care if you have, or your strength is your big guys down low in the offensive presence. I don't care if it's your 3-point shooting. I don't care if it's your ability to get to the rim and make your free throws. I don't care if it's your defensive prowess that is causing a lot of havoc for teams. I don't care what it is. All I care about is whatever it is you do it very, very well, and do it consistently, and do it as a team. I mean, everyone's got their own idea of what they want a team to look like and what they want players to look like and how good they want them to be. Everyone's got their own ideas behind it, but it doesn't always just happen that way. It's never the same. Title teams are different every year. Coaches are different every year. There's no one style and golden recipe to make it all work. So when you're looking at a roster and you're looking at, for instance, what this roster is going to look like for Arkansas when it's all said and done, don't look at it in such a microcosm of being like, well, we need this though. And we need this player. We need this type of player. Do you trust your coach? Do you trust your staff? Do you trust them to build a roster that's worthy and capable of winning a championship? I do. So I'm going to let him do it the way he wants to do it. And then if he proves otherwise, then we can have a conversation. But right now, I think Cal's going to have, it's not this year, next year, whatever. He's going to have talent. He's going to have a title caliber team assembled here at Arkansas. I can guarantee that. A lot of it's going to deal with NIL, though, and we're going to talk about that because there was something that came out on 3 I wanted to discuss with Arkansas's NIL and basketball. We'll get to that. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Right, Razorback fans, we know that the Final Four is approaching, and it'll be happening this weekend, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. You know I'm going to be looking at a lot of different teams. I really don't want the SEC teams to win, but, between Auburn and Florida, it's going to be a dogfight. I may bet the under in that one. But they have all the spreads and totals and game props you can imagine over there at a place like FanDuel. So with tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. And FanDuel app is very easy to use because when I win, I get paid instantly, no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Not surprising, but On3 wrote an article, and they were talking about this is a couple days ago, but they were talking about the programs in college basketball that are going to be the ones that are getting looked at from a lot of different programs and for transfers and everything. And they mentioned 3 particular schools that seem to be the clubhouse leaders, or at least the ones that are being known for having the most NIL to work with in college basketball. One of them's Kentucky, one of them's Louisville, and the other one is Arkansas. So when that happens, again, adds to the expectation that people have. When it happens, people wonder, though, is it actually true? Because there's not a set list that you can just go on. Like USA Today is not putting out their top 25 NIL basketball programs because here's our factual evidence of our numbers. When we did a FOI request, this is what we saw. That doesn't exist. So it's based off any list is going to be what they hear, what they think, what they put together, whatever it is. But I can promise you this, folks. If you ever wonder about Arkansas and about their NIL situation in basketball, I'm just talking about basketball. If you ever wonder how it is, or if it's good, or if it's one of the top tiers or whatever, the only thing I'm going to point to you or point for you to is who's your head coach? Who's your head coach? John Calipari. Be honest. Do you think that John Calipari, heading into his second season at Arkansas, do you think he would have taken this job? Do you think he'd still be doing this job if he did not have the highest of NIL to work with? Do you think that he would just walk into this situation and be like, well, yeah, Tyson and Yurchek, I know that we're only going to be, probably between 10 to 15th best in NIL, but it's the way it goes. I mean, what do you expect? No. Folks, John Calipari is your head coach. John Calipari does not accept anything lower than the best when it comes to working with the resources. That's why he gets paid as much as he does. That's why he gets as much attention as he does. And that's why the NIL with John Calipari as your head coach is never, ever, ever going to be a problem. It's always going to be top flight. So any of you that's actually worried about that, stop. Let the chicken man do his work. Let him cook, as they say. Let the chicken man do his thing. Let Cal do his thing. Let the team do their thing. And let's see what it all plays out to be. But yeah, don't you worry, folks. The NIL is doing just ducky over there at the Razorback basketball program because Cal wouldn't put up with anything less. Simple as that. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. See you then.